Well, after spending the last 2 months likely dodging cups of irradiated tea, perfume bottles full of nerve toxin, and strangers trying to push him out a window, these are all ways Putin has killed political opponents before. Yevgeny Prigozhin, the infamous leader of Russia's Wagner Group, appears to have been killed in a plane crash. Of course, you probably already know that, but what you may not realize is that there is a ton of conflicting mis- and disinformation about this incident already floating around online. And that's probably because the details that we can confirm are very sparse, and people have a habit of filling in the blanks with their imagination. The few details that we can confirm are that, according to the passenger manifest, Yevgeny Prigozhin and a group of other Wagner Group lieutenants were flying on board an Embraer private jet with 3 crew members on board as well, for a total of 10. Now, that aircraft took off from Moscow and was headed for St. Petersburg when it crashed just about halfway there. And according to at least one eyewitness, she heard a series of explosions. She described them as pop, 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 before looking up and seeing the aircraft with one wing coming off, spiraling into a dive, and ultimately crashing into the ground. Now, it was initially reported that the aircraft had been shot down by a Russian surface-to-air missile system, but then it was later reported that it likely wasn't, and according to American defense and intelligence officials, their running theory is that it was sabotage, maybe with a bomb on board. But it gets even more complicated from there, because I've spoken to some very qualified air defense experts who were reviewing images that are allegedly of the aircraft going down, and according to them, the smoke plumes you can see in the air in these images very clearly appear to be a downward detonation of a shaped charge that would be consistent with a surface-to-air missile interceptor. So at this point, it's anybody's guess, but the one thing that I think we're all pretty confident in assessing is that Vladimir Putin was almost certainly behind this. Now, a few months ago, when Yevgeny Prigozhin led his faux coup to Moscow, he was very careful not to lay any of the blame for the Ukraine war on Vladimir Putin's feet, instead saying it was all senior Russian military officials. But it seems pretty evident nonetheless that Putin and Prigozhin were no longer BFFs. It's important to note that Prigozhin got his start as Putin's personal caterer. Now, this story is going to continue to develop for some time, but the one thing we know for sure is that Russian disinformation efforts are already rolling at full steam. The FSB has opened a terror investigation, and they're trying to blame Ukraine for this, while Vladimir Putin is making statements about what a good businessman Prigozhin used to be. As for the Wagner Group, they have confirmed via their Telegram channels that Prigozhin is indeed dead, though that may also be a lie. They seem fully confident that Putin was behind this, and they've even threatened to march on Moscow again. Now, here in the West, there are some folks who see Prigozhin in a positive light because he was one of the few Russian insiders to stand up to Vladimir Putin. But I want to be clear that Yevgeny Prigozhin earned his title of war criminal in the most brutal of fashions. And while I would never cheer for anybody's aircraft to get exploded halfway between takeoff and landing, as far as aircraft explosions go, we could do worse.